Hey y'all, welcome back to the Inner. Today I'm joined by my brother Apostle James Stone Sam. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, sir. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. If you could introduce yourself to the audience, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. My name is Apostle James Stone. I am a Kingdom Ambassador. I'm also an entrepreneur. I am a director of a company called JST, is a tech company that deals with tech. Yes, so not yet married, so I'm not a father, but soon to be one. Uh, that's a brief introduction of who I am.
Okay, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So you are based in Kenya, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Before we get into your story, I was just curious. People have been telling me about some of the I guess you could say political turmoil that's been happening in the area with like the
Yeah.
protests and the demonstrations.
Yes.
At least from an insider perspective, what's really going on?
The people are just protesting against the government. They've raised a few concerns and they feel like the government is not listening, but things are cool now. At least, they're managing the situation. Yeah. About a month ago, it was worse. Some of the uh, people that were picketing, they were intercepted by the goons. So, some things were happening that the government did not like, but at least now everything is under control. The government is trying to manage the situation. So at least we're in a better place right now.
Okay, that's actually good to hear because I love y'all and everything. But I also know protesting isn't necessarily a bad thing, even though it might be
Yeah,
an uncomfortable thing.
yes, it's not a bad thing because they're just raising their issues, some of the demands that they have that they feel like the government has not been listening. So it's a good thing, but also there's a way that it can be done in moderation, and also there are certain. Uh, this is a government. That means there is the rule of law. So everything that is done should be done within you know, the framework that is given
Okay.
and provided for by the government.
Yeah. All right. So getting into
How
your
is
journey,
US,
huh?
your country? How are things over there?
Uh we're preparing for an election, so things are kind of 50-50. I wouldn't
50-50.
say that we're just now being divided, more so division is being spoken on more than
Mhm.
ever because, well, we have two sides to pick from for an upcoming election. So,
Yes.
majority of us are making our stances known.
Mm.
One of our presidents, our current president, dropped out of the race for this upcoming election and switched that over. So that's been fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah.
But everything is cool.
Yeah. Currently,
Good.
everything's still going smooth. Um,
Amen.
yeah.
Amen. We thank God.
So, going into your journey, if you could
Yes.
kind of narrate for us, how did your spiritual journey develop? How did you become the apostle that we know today?
It's a long journey. Allow me to start by saying that my grandmother was an intercessor. I don't know if you know Reinhard Bonke.
Yeah.
So in Africa, what used to happen is that anytime Bonke is preaching, intercessors could go under the podium to just intercede as the crusade is going on, as the miracle service is ongoing. So my grandmother used to take me with her those days. So I grew up in church. I grew up in church, and I saw what happened. I used to prophesy to people when I was young, according to my grandma. The elders back then used to come to our home for me to just prophesy, but I didn't know that I had a call of God. So fast forward, I lost my mom in the year 2004, and that affected me because she was the only grandma to my I mean, she was the only daughter to my grandma, and it kind of affected all of us. We didn't have an auntie, an uncle, but we only had our grandma. So I looked at her, I watched her, I observed her relationship with God growing stronger and stronger. But deep down within me, there was a question: where was God? You know, why will He allow such a terrible thing to happen? So at some point, I deviated from Him. I decided to pursue other things. So I remember it was in the year 2016, December. There was this lady that I was dating. She was a medic, and it was her birthday. So what do you do as the boyfriend? You make sure everything is in order. I had prepared. I had invited some of my friends to accompany me. She had also done the same. So when we were just having our drinks and everything, I looked at what we were doing, and deep down within my heart, I felt a voice speaking to me that, James, this is not the life I've called you to live. There is more to the kingdom than this. The voice became louder deep within me, and I approached my then girlfriend and told her, you know what, I think I'll just leave. She was offended. She said, okay, you can go. So I left around 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was completely drunk. So at that time I was not driving, so I had to take in Kenya we call them matatus. I had to take a matatu from that place is called Kinangop. It's like 2 hours, 30 minutes drive from Nairobi. So when I was about to cross the road for towards the stage, there was a speeding van that was heading towards my direction, and I didn't see it. I just saw it when I was in the middle of the road, sorry. And the driver had not seen me, and he was just hooting. All of a sudden, I was teleported from the middle of the road to the other end, and I had a voice speak to me and say, James, I love you, and I'm calling you to myself. The driver that was driving the vehicle drove a few meters past me and then reversed the vehicle because, according to him, he thought he had knocked off a ghost or something. When he saw I was still standing, he drove off very fast. And from there, because I was completely drunk, when the Lord spoke to me, the alcohol percentage went from 100 to 0. And he said, I love you, and I'm calling you to myself. And I was like, you killed my mother. Where were you all these years? Because I went through a lot of things growing up. It's a long story, but allow me not to get into that for now. So I asked him, where have you been all these years? And he said, I've been there. There are some misconceptions that you have about me, but I want you to seek me, and you shall find me when you seek me with all your heart. I went that day and I gave my life to Christ, and I told him, Lord, please lead me to where you like me to be. I visited a number of churches just to try and see if I can get a place that I can fit. But everywhere I went, during testimonies, they could just come and speak and say, you know what, God gave me a husband. God opened the door for me to go to Ghana, for me to go to the US, all these things. But deep down within me, I felt like there was more to him. So one time I decided to when I was still fasting, asking God, where do you want me to go? That time I met a friend who now invited me to a conference that was happening. And that is when I met as one of the sons, a member that used to fellowship with us back then. And the way this man was speaking, I knew he knew God. There was something that was different about him. So to cut the whole story short, I joined this place. And what surprised me is that during testimonies, I was used to people sharing, God gave me that, God gave me this. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I was like, there is more in God that we've not yet seen, we've not yet tapped into. So during testimonies, there was this lady that stood and spoke and said, you know what? I was with the father last night. She was a nurse, and she was having her exams. And the father gave her, the Holy Spirit reveals to her the entire examination paper. I was like, this is the God that I want. And then the next person that stood to speak, he said that he had interactions with the angelic. When he speaks, the angels come. The other person spoke about having encounters with the Father, and I was like, this is the place I want to be. And from there, God gave me a father. Interacted with him. His name is Apostle Daniel Resonga. And he has been a great father. Yes, that is a brief summary of my yes.
That's awesome. So, how long have you, unless you could say, been connected with Apostle Daniel?
From 2017, about 7, 8 years now.
Okay,
Yes, 7, 8 years now.
that's amazing. So,
Yeah.
just talking about seeking God, what does seeking God look like for you? Is that prayer? Is that fasting? What? How does that work on? I guess for you personally.
Seeking God is beyond fasting, according to me. It's beyond prayer. Is having that deep desire, that you want to know Him and His kingdom, Him. One of the things that I've noticed is that there are many misconceptions that we've embraced. There are certain perspectives that we've embraced that are out of sync with truth, you know. Like, for example, there are many people that pray in tongues for hours. They've never interacted or had a face-to-face encounter with God. There are people that pray, fast more than anything. One ingredient that a man of God that I love in the US, his name is Apostle Maldonado. He
Okay.
once said that one ingredient for any outpouring of the Spirit is hunger. So there must be a hunger. Look at this guy called David. He's a king. And he said, as the deer pants for the water brooks, so my soul pants after thee. This is a king. In every king has all the delicacies, everything with him. But what is this thing that he saw, that he said within himself? My soul thirsts as the deer pants for the water brooks, so does my soul pant after you. So that desire, anytime you're desiring, you're paying attention. And this is my perspective. Anytime you pay attention to something, the very essence of that thing or that person, the very essence of that person will be drawn to you and will begin to harness the same within yourself. So seeking God is beyond just prayer, is beyond fasting, is beyond all that. Is having a hunger to know Him and to know His kingdom. I was listening to the conversation you were having with my brother, Prophet Jesse, the other day, when talking about, you were sharing about having encounters with beings that look like humans. And you see, there are some Christians that might be uncomfortable with all that. The
Mhm.
ETIs, as they call them, the extraterrestrial intelligence, they're there. And in fact, I was listening to a documentary by, I think, the 34th president of the US, and one of the things that stood out very well in that conversation was that in the 1950s, because he was a military man, in the 1950s, he had an encounter with an extraterrestrial intelligence, extraterrestrial being. So seeking God is beyond, and having that posture of learning and unlearning, because one of the things that I believe that is happening today, most people think what they know is the ultimate. Any person that speaks contrary to what you believe in or what I believe in becomes an issue. But I believe that seeking God is also allowing Him to stretch us and introduce us to things that you're not familiar with. Like I was listening to the presidential candidate in your country, the year
Mhm.
2016, and one of the things that he was promising the country was that he will declassify the UFO files if she's elected. And I was like, why will she even say that if these things are not even there? You know? So seeking God is beyond that. Is You can do all those things, you can pray, you can think, you can meditate, but it's having that hunger, that desire to know things beyond what you already know. As a church, or as in today's generation, there are many things that happen. People think that what they know is the ultimate. Look at Jesus when he was walking on the face of the earth. The things
Mhm.
that he spoke, the things that he did, the custodians back then, thought that these are the teachers of the law. Why are the teachers of the law? The things that Jesus came to teach, they could not comprehend, you know. So they were waiting for God, but God sent, he came, he became carnate, and then he descended, but they could not comprehend the reality of the things that he was saying. So seeking God also incorporates being in that place and having the mindset that all I know is not all that there is.
I like that. Even just continuing in the topic that you brought up, just about aliens. Over the
Yes.
past 4 years, our government, the US, has made it very clear to the public that aliens exist,
Really?
which to us means that there has to be some sort of issue that they're getting
Yeah.
ready to prepare us for. Otherwise, they wouldn't
Yeah.
be telling us about it. Like the
Yes.
Navy, it started off with the Navy saying that, yes, UFOs are real and we see them all the time.
Mm.
Like, whoa, we thought y'all would have like put that on the news, made a big deal about it. I feel like that should have been breaking news, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's kind of said,
Uh,
yeah, they exist. So what? That Yeah, we see the ships all the time. You're like, okay.
interesting. It's interesting because I
And
think there's
then
this Canadian former minister.
yeah.
I don't know if it's Paul Hella or something like that. He spoke and
Hmm.
he said that this is the former national defense minister who spoke and said that most governments, you
Hmm.
know, have made contact with the alien technology.
Yeah. Cause like I remember, I forget what time period it was, but there was a book that came out that
Yes.
documents it. Not sure how true the situation is, but it's possible. They're just now telling us that aliens actually do exist. Well,
Yes.
there was a situation with this guy named who went by Valiant Thor,
Mm.
who was said
Hmm.
to be an extraterrestrial that came and visited the US government for some time, had a room where he stayed at in the White House, and came to give
Yes.
advice to the government on how to
Yes.
get things set up to kind of help us out a bit. And moral of the story is that they ended up not listening to him.
Mm.
Now,
As I was
yeah.
speaking, I'm reminded of this scientific method. I don't know if they call it the Drake equation or what,
Hmm.
where they can use it to even tell. I don't know if you've heard of it, you're conversant with it. They can use it to tell some of the civilizations that existed prior. You know,
Yeah.
there is scientific evidence to prove that. You
Yeah.
know.
Because that's something I've been able to see. When
Mm.
studying different cultures, you realize that some of these cultures are, let's just say, before the floods.
Yes.
The Bible itself mentions in a way that there have been 7 destructions
Mm.
of the human race, which means
Yes.
at least there are 7 races that came before what we
Yes.
read about,
Yes.
or at least 6 other races of humanity that have been on
Yes.
the planet before we even get to a flood, before we
Very
get
true.
to an
Very
Adam or an Eve. Um,
true.
and funny enough, every destruction, let's just say, wasn't the complete annihilation of a race.
Yes.
That was something that was freaky when I began to at least share that with people, is that, well, truthfully, and this answered a question we all had as kids, it's like, wait, the Bible says that Adam and Eve were the only 2 people, and then they had a son, Cain and Abel, and then Cain left, went to the land of Nod, and then found him a wife. Wait, where'd she come from?
Mm.
It's like, wait, where does this, how did he leave to go find a wife? Well, that's because there were people from previous civilizations that did happen to survive previous cataclysms.
Very true. And it's so interesting how sometimes people are so much aware of the enemy leading them astray instead of God allowing his children to find the truth. I don't remember the name of this astrobiologist who spoke, and he was speaking in a certain convention, and he was explaining to this group of people that there is life, there's a form of life in other planets. And was just trying to explain, but some of the people that were even responding, because it was more of a discussion, were
Mhm.
trying to really, really disregard that, because according to them, they think what is the ultimate. And it's so sad, because even the Bible, it talks about the latter will be greater than the former. I give this example, like in our country, Kenya. There's what is called KICC, is an iconic building in this country. So the architects that erected this structure, they did a good job. They did a good job. But if you travel to Dubai, there's a building that is called Burj Khalifa. I think is the tallest building globally, if I'm not wrong. The
Mhm.
architects that designed Burj Khalifa, they are heightened in intelligence. And there's something they've cracked, and there's an understanding that they have that those people that erected the KICC did not probably have. So how are we going to bring the new with the knowledge that is of the past, you know? And sometimes the new might really be disturbing. When you talk about immortality, some people will stand and attack you. They think, oh, nah, what are you saying? This is a very, this is wrong. There's a minister of the gospel who was very criticized in South Africa for speaking
Foolish.
about that. Yes, you know him?
My spiritual father.
Really? I love the man. He could demonstrate things, you know. And I noticed something. It's so easy for people to write that which they do not understand, you know. But if you're talking about the latter glory, that which no eye has seen, that which no ear has heard, how will we do those things if we rely on that which is already there?
Yeah.
You know,
It's
you
like when
know.
we study all the people in the past, the
Yes,
only reason we know them is because they refused to do what everyone else was already doing.
very true.
They were willing to use the supernatural or use the spirit world in order to
Yeah,
produce something that hadn't been seen yet.
yes. Hmm?
It's like up
Yeah,
until let's just say Babalola, I never heard any stories about someone ringing a bell and casting all the demons out of a city at the same time. That's unique to him. Or
yes,
I think his name was Daniel Orakoya, praying in
yes,
tongues and thunder striking, around, lightning beginning to strike around him. That's
yes.
very unique to him.
Very true. Very true. And this is my persuasion. I remember this one time when I was journeying in the spirit with the Father, he began to reveal to me or show me some of the things that he has prepared for the children of God. Remember this one time I had gone to just seek the face of the Lord and for a number of days. And I remember in that place, uh, all of a sudden I was on top of a mountain and the Lord was standing by my side. And then he called me up without saying a word. He just stretched his hand and I was with him. And then he began to show me this is what dominion is. We, as the sons of God, are supposed to rule over the birds of the air, over the crippling things, over the fish of the sea. And when he stretched his hand like this, everything was responding to who he was, who he had become. And he was saying, this is what dominion is. He could speak to the fish. He could speak to me that he's summoning the fish, and the fish could run. The trees, he could understand. In a moment, my ears were open, and I could understand the language of the trees. And he was in communion with the trees. And then from there, he took me to a wooden room. And then in that wooden room, we were just conversing with him. And then he took a piece and then threw it down. And then the piece of wood broke into pieces. And then again, he stretched his hand. And now he recollected the pieces back together. But this time round, the wood looked even better than how it was. You know, my first reaction was, Lord, you also get angry and throw things or what? But it was just showing me the concept of you may be very broken, but he has a way. Them that plug into him, there's a way. He has a way of beautifying everything that doesn't look good. And then from there, he took me to the Father. And then there was a layer in the throne. Up above the throne, there was another layer. And then he opened my eyes and I could see there are more first glory, some of the things that he has put in store. And one of the things that I saw, like people that will begin now to go to a place. Let's, for example, you want to go and have a meeting in, let's say, Uganda, and there is no stadium. You know, by your word, you recreate and bend even the ground, and it forms the shape of the ground. And if it's dry, you grow the the grass all of a sudden. Remember, you started showing you things like nations coming to the sons of God. Some of them have amputated legs, some of them have amputated hands, some of them are dead. Governments bring those people that have been injured in battle. And the moment they come close to you, they're able now to experience that healing. They're able to be revived. Those that are dead are able to be brought back to life. You know, I don't believe that will be manifested by the knowledge that the apostles, they did a good job in bringing and teaching us some things. But I also believe that there are men that God is raising in our days that will begin to go deep in the spirit and begin to come up with technologies that have not yet been seen before.
Yeah. I like that. In the same vein of that, I remember seeing a vision that I often revisit just to kind of engage that space is
Yes.
kind of like I don't know if y'all do it the same way out there, but something that I've seen a lot, especially because like we've had land, is the city being able to like order dirt from the city.
Yes.
And they'd come and like dump it on your yard. So you had this large pile of sand or dirt or gravel or whatever. So
Yeah.
I've seen a vision of this large mound of dirt
Mm-hmm.
at like a fellowship or like a meeting,
Yes.
and being able to, and I've seen people just speaking from their place of dominion and calling people from the dead, giving them a
Yes.
brand new body out of the dirt.
Ah, wow. You
Because,
know?
dead raising is one thing, completely recreating a body from
Yeah.
the source material is another.
Yeah.
And that's really what I've been seeing visions
Yes.
of people just coming back, calling names, the body forms, and they come out.
That is not something that a religious folk can even embrace. It's disturbing. Like I have a friend of mine here in Kenya. He's an Indian, and they buried the dad the other day. And trying to speak to such a person about the resurrection of the dead after cremation is is hard for them. But I believe these are things. You guys were talking about spirituality is science. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just that it has not yet been understood. You know, like I remember there's a time my spiritual father was asking us this question, and he said, "These things that you call miracles, are they miracles to angels?" He said, "No, they are not miracles because that is their science.
Mm-hmm.
That is how things flow in their domain, in their realm."
Yeah.
And I'm like, how many other things that you've not yet captured, God wants to reveal? There's a problem. There's a problem with monumenting. Sometimes someone can see a certain dimension and think that which they've seen is the greater, only to find out that there is more to what they've seen. So sometimes monumenting can be a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd
And
even
now,
say
yes,
just along those lines, miracles happen, what we call miracles down here, simply when we
yes,
apply higher laws.
mm,
It's just
mm-hmm.
functioning from something that the common man doesn't know. Even
Yes,
uh like you're an entrepreneur, finances to
yes,
someone who doesn't know how money works can seem miraculous. It looks supernatural. How do they have that much money
mm-hmm.
just showing up on a regular basis?
Mm,
How does that even work? How do you even start that? It baffling, right? It's like you
yes,
being in the field, you get how money works, you know how business works, you know what needs to be
mm-hmm.
invested, what needs to be deposited, what needs to
Mm,
be in order. I see the
mm.
supernatural the same way, that there's certain laws that just have to be applied.
Very true. There's a time I was speaking with a friend and we are discussing about the science of healing.
Hmm.
Just trying to explain to him, like the human body produces what we call bioelectric currents. You know, when the ions are moving through, I mean, on top of the cell membranes, they are somehow generated. And by the way, talking of electromagnetic currents. There's a time we were having a conversation with some guys, and they were like, "Oh, these things people call aura, these 7 chakras, all these things, they are not godly." And I'm like, if these things do what they say, then who created the human being?
Yeah,
Sometimes you can like the sun, the what do you call it? The Chinese medicine. The Chinese
yeah,
medicine. This is what they call the acupuncture.
yeah,
Yeah, and acupressure. I don't know if you've heard of acupuncture.
yeah. It's all about dealing with the flow of energy in the body.
Yes, the flow of energy. Now they identify the meridian within the human body, and sometimes they can use needles to just target specific points to clear the blockages and enhance harmony. You know,
Yeah.
You know, the acupressure, they just look at certain and at certain points, and they put pressure, they press, they add pressure on those zones, and that person recovers fully. How can we say that that is demonic? You know,
Yeah.
how can we say it's demonic?
Yeah. It's just not
They are,
Christian. But not Christian doesn't mean demonic. Like, for example, right? We were
yeah,
talking about aliens earlier, or
yes,
just accessing higher beings. The
yes,
word alien just means something that's not from where I'm at.
yes, exactly,
So
sir.
me and you are actually aliens to each other. I'm from the
Yes,
US, you're from Kenya, right? So
very
we're
true.
aliens, okay? If you
Mm.
ever wanted to see one, we're seeing one now. But
Yes.
one of the things that is a part of that story, the development of Chinese medicine, it came from a guy known as the Yellow Emperor,
Mm-hmm.
who his story is that he kind of just appeared one day,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not fitting the description of any of the other people that were in China at that time, and actually built that civilization from scratch, taught
Yes.
them how to farm, taught them how to grow crops, taught them how to handle their animals, taught them how mathematics, how to build their architecture, also
Yes.
taught them Chinese medicine,
Mm.
dealing with the electrical flow of energy throughout the body and how to
Yes.
apply pressure or puncture certain spots in order to get energy to begin to flow again. All of this is in his book that they've been using for thousands of years. It's all literally divine science. You know how
Mm.
mystical gardening is for people that don't know how to do it? You mean I
Yes.
throw you mean I water this dirt and enough food will come out of it that I could feed generations? Sounds
Yes.
like a miracle. Really, it's a science that's unknown.
Yes.
Even in the 21st century right now, a lot of us still don't know how to garden.
Yes. Very true. Very, very true. You know, it's interesting how people sometimes don't embrace divine things. They term them demonic, but want to a person that associates or attributes the things of God to the enemy. You know, in our country, there is a gentleman who is the pastor. He leads a congregation, and I remember he was against mysticism a lot because he couldn't understand. And of course, we cannot ignore that the fact that there are people that are led astray most of the times if they're not given to mentorship and tutorship. So, because he saw someone who was pursuing that, and in a way that person became mad, and it's because probably of some of the things he saw that, or maybe the stamina was not there. Or it's just something. We cannot just now disqualify mysticism because of that. So remember
Yeah.
one time the wife got ill, and the only solution was to take her to India, you
Mhm.
know, and they had tried everything in Kenya, and it was not working. Mind you, this is a person that was very, very skeptical about energy healing and all that.
Mhm.
There was a very long queue in the hospital that they were booked in, and they were to wait for a number of hours. And he looked at his wife, and he knew he was going to delay there for about 10 or 20, because they were given an appointment about 23 hours or something. Because there was, I don't know, there was a breakdown or something in which country, just a neighboring country or a neighboring town, if I'm not wrong. And you know, so he looked at that time frame that he was given, and it was like, this is not going to, my wife will not make it. So he inquired, you know, do we have anyone that you know? Me, I just want results. Do you know of any hospital? And he was told there's no hospital, but there is a man. There is an old man somewhere about 40 kilometers from here. Yeah, that man will help your wife. I've seen him heal many people. Guess what? He was desperate. He decided to give it a try, and then they left. Upon arrival, there was this old man, about 66 years old, who was seated somewhere under a tree,
Mhm.
just chanting, chanting, chanting. That so he was told to wait for about 30 minutes, and then the man finished what he was doing, and then later on, he was introduced, and he explained his case. And the man just walked where the wife was. Is this your wife? Yes. There was an interpreter. Mind you, he couldn't even articulate himself well in English. Yeah, he went to where the wife was and just stretched his hand his one hand like this, and the wife woke up instantly. That man today believes in energy healing, and there are many forms of healings. So sometimes now he's among the people that believe. This thing that I used to fight, indeed, there's something that I didn't know, because knowledge is power. So sometimes people fight something they don't understand. Because another story, I was listening to an entrepreneur in the UK who was very, these people that are he was a racist. He was against the Chinese community very, very much. So they tried everything they could. Nothing worked. So he was told there's a group of monks somewhere. If you take your wife there, she'll be healed. And we're using they're using the Chinese medicine formula, the method. And that person, the wife became okay, got well. And now the person that was against that became a student, and now is a teacher. Do you know some of these people, they're even Indians? Some of these people, they scan. If people have applied for a certain position, and they're able to scan with their hands, they call it sensing the aura. And I'm telling you, they even know who to put in what position with just their hands. And nowadays, because some applications are done digitally, they're able to just open that application, and they're able to scan, because the person that keyed in or applied, they were relaying their essence. They were engraving their essence into what they were doing. But here comes a person with the knowledge to understand and unpack that and discern, not through the Holy Ghost, through the hand, and is able to know this is the best candidate. And I'm telling you, that is how they do it. And they don't fail. They can know this person can fit in this position, that person cannot fit in this position. And here we are terming that as demonic. You see, we are the ones that lose. We pray in tongues, and then later on hire people, and then the people that we've hired, they are not performing. Peradventure, if we had mastered this skill, just scanning, maybe it will help.
It's recognizing the dominant frequency of a person, because we're radios. By handling something that someone else has handled, they somewhat leave an impartation on it. Not spiritual, but physical, electric.
Yes.
So you're able to pick that up and say, okay, there have been countless times my wife has seen me do it. I'd walk into a place and say, oh, they was arguing in here earlier. That's not me seeing in the spirit. I could feel that in the room. And then lo and behold, the truth comes out. Yeah, they was arguing in there about an hour before we came. It's like, yeah, because it's still in the room. It hadn't left yet. Y'all changed the atmosphere into that. It's the same way why someone that's in a bad mood can enter into a relatively peaceful place and shift the atmosphere, even if they don't interact with anyone.
Very true.
Because on an energetic field level, it's legit. It's more than just an internal madness. It's a radiation.
Yes. Very true. In fact, every human being has an energy radius with, around them. That is where you can enter a house, and even those people that are not born again. I don't know if you've ever entered a house and you knew for sure these people are arguing or quarreling. Even if they're trying to smile, you can just tell.
Yeah.
These two people were fighting.
Yeah. You walk in and go, oh, they don't like each other. They just work together. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So even now, like there is a very common statement that has been going around that, if you hear these people talk about God and energy, these are new ages and all that, and technically looking at it this way, from a very basic point of view, you'll see that when you talk about God, we say God is powerful. You cannot talk about power without not talking about energy. There's no you can talk of power without talking of energy. So in terms of God is powerful, that means he has a certain energy. But now they say it doesn't sound cool when it comes out that way. But basically, it's the truth.
Yeah. You know something funny that I remembered more
Yeah.
recently?
Yes.
What I found it hilarious that Christians actually persecute the New Age. The New
Mm.
Age, as a structure, is a Christian denomination. The
Yes.
founder of the New Age was a Christian man named Edgar Casey.
Yes. It's so sad. And actually, these people that we are fighting, some of them have tapped into something that most Christians have not. You
Yeah,
know?
and it's not
Yeah.
unholy. It's
It's
just
not unholy.
unfamiliar.
Yes. And by the way, do you know something? Do you know that the Catholic Church, they don't fight, they believe in ETIs, you know?
Mhm.
They believe, they say it doesn't contradict the faith, you
Yeah,
know? They believe
they've
there are other beings
canonized a
that God
few as
created.
they've
Yeah.
canonized a few aliens as saints.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I just know the saints.
Mhm. A few of
And
their saints are aliens.
that explains why some of their saints, like Saint Patrick, some of these men. I remember there's one saint in a certain town who wanted to speak to the people and they were not listening. You know what he did? He decided to give them a sign. He walked next to a water body, which was a sea or something, and the moment he walked, I mean, at the shore, the fish came. Mind you, they are fishermen who some of them had spent 2 days trying to fish and nothing happened. He just stood,
Mhm.
you know. And when he stood, the fish came in big numbers and he was able to speak to the fish. He could tell them, go this direction, go that direction. You know, St. Patrick, this is a man that saw a certain village in the village that he was in. There was this fox that was disturbing people. The guy walked where the fox was. No one could attempt to go closer to that fox. You know, and he spoke to the fox and told the fox, you're not going to rise this village again. And the fox had, you know, this gentleman that he stood somewhere to speak, you know, he spoke somewhere and the birds for 2 3 hours, not even a single bird flew. After he was done, he just blessed the birds and then released. That maybe explains why maybe some of these saints were able to touch certain dimensions because maybe they were open to a certain understanding or certain knowledge that
Mm.
is not in the with the commoners, you know.
Yeah. Because when you read through a lot of their stories, they'd mention meeting beings, and oftentimes they'd say that they met angels. Because what
Ah.
else are you gonna call it? You see a being walk up on you with perfect skin and, let's just say, more modern clothing.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh, this is heavenly. You know, they're still wearing sackcloth at that time. So you see some
Mm.
guy walk up on you and they have these clothes and they're bright white. None of their clothes were bright white. And the light is shining off of them. They're like, oh, this must be heavenly. In some cases, those are angels. Something else
Yes.
that I found interesting is that within Catholicism, some of the saints are also from other religions entirely. Some of the saints aren't even Christian
Yes.
or Catholic.
Yes.
They'll just change that person's name and include the story anyway. Like there was a
Yes.
book that used to
Mm.
be equal rank to the Bible back in the day, known as the Golden Legend.
The golden legend.
Yeah, it was equal rank to the Bible for a few hundred years. And
Yes.
it carried the stories of pretty much all the saints up until a certain time period.
Mm.
So the Bible was kind of seen as like an ancient record. Meanwhile, the Golden Legend was seen as a more modern record of all
Mm.
these different saints and the acts that they'd done. Well,
Yes.
there's a few individuals in there. I haven't read the whole thing, but some of them, like one of them, Saint Jehoshaphat, you
Mm.
read through his story, you're like, wow, that was amazing. Then you find out the whole thing is plagiarized, and that's the story of Buddha.
The
That is
lighted.
Siddhartha Gautama himself, the founder of
Yes.
Buddhism.
Yes.
Included amongst the saints, they just changed
Yes.
his name so that he fit in within the Christian circle.
Mm.
So not
Wow. It's
even all their saints are Christian. Buddha
yes.
is actually one of them.
Yes. It's interesting how even the time I was listening to one monk teach, and I listened to what he was saying, and I was like, what this guy is saying is really really You know, it's aligning with some of the things that I believe. You know, whatever he was saying, I could tell, okay, this person is speaking the truth. You know, because you see now, some of these people have interacted with the Christ, but in the dimension of the Christ they are coming with is lower than the one they've interacted with. You know what I'm saying? So some of the people, like you see now, the reason why there is a big disconnect between the church and even the world is because, number one, we show them they are wrong and we are right. You know, they are wrong and that religion is wrong. But technically, if you ask me, I don't see if there is anything wrong even having a Muslim being a mentor in a certain area. And it's not just limited to business. You know, maybe peradventure there is something they've cracked and understanding they already have that can help us. You know, because there's a truth, there's a facet, yeah, of God that they carry, or there's a truth that they've unpacked and they've understood. Peradventure, if we are taught, it can help us in that way. But every time we are seeing that religion, we are seeing that religion, we are seeing this, we are seeing this person, we are fighting, then it ends up working against us. But just being, I remember one time we were doing evangelism with a certain sister, and we met an elder from a certain community, and you know, he started by rebuking us. You know what he said? You know, Christianity, you guys don't, what you teach doesn't make sense to me. Remember one time there was a mad woman who pastors had laid their hands on and nothing happened. But there came an elder from this tribe and he just performed a few things and the woman was okay. You know? So now, will I start speaking in tongues and rebuke this person? I will put my charismatic, I will calm my charismatic fire and just learn from this person. You know? Of course, there are certain things that you'll hear and you're like, oh, this one is a bit, it needs to be rectified, you know, and maybe you may not have the understanding to do so at the moment. But there's nothing wrong with sitting down and learn. So we sat down, learn from that person. But now you see now, the world will look at that such a person as, you know, you've conformed. You know?
One of the things that a lot of the ancient cultures, even the Hebrews, even the Bible carry is ancient technology. That you'll read about and not actually pay too much attention to. Not only did they have advanced spirituality, their technology was better than ours. And like, for example, you mentioned the Muslims. In the Quran, it mentions advanced technology. It mentions how Solomon, in his temple, he had his stairway that led up to his throne. He had lions on either side that would turn their head to follow him as he walked up and down the stairs. That's advanced technology.
Yes, that is advanced technology. In fact, even like I was looking at some of the men that are revered most in the Quran. One of them is Moses. Even Jesus, they say, is a prophet, and the other person is Solomon. And they've given a detailed report of what happened. Do you know, they believe that Solomon, as they call him, could speak to the birds and understand the language of the birds, could speak to the trees and understand the trees, that he had mastered the jinn, you know, and it is only king that during his reign, there was peace. Peace. How did he manage to do that? Look at Prophet Moses. These guys, they revere him a lot. That is dominion. I was talking to a friend of mine and we were talking about a person like Bill Gates, true dominion. You know, sometimes when we talk about dominion, especially as ministers, sometimes it limits our perception to just church and pulpit. But dominion is not that way. Dominion is when you remove that which you've invented, it's like economies will crumble. Governments will come begging. It's like today, Twitter or Facebook, they come to Kenya and they say, you know what, we are going to remove our servers and they're not going to offer our services to you anymore. Most businesses are depending on Facebook. The guy doesn't have a church. The guy, we don't even know what he does. But dominion, governments will beg if he decides to announce that in Africa, you guys, I don't want Facebook to be in Africa anymore, most people will come and say, you know what? Please, let's talk, you know.
Yeah.
But if I close my church today, who will complain? Yeah. You know, sometimes you look at such things and you're like, I need to build capacity and stamina. So
Yeah.
Muslims, there are certain things that they even understand about Solomon that even the church, like you see, I hear people judge and sometimes they judge Solomon harshly. And it's because if you ask me, I think peradventure there's something you don't understand. So they say this person who had these wives, the guy had, you know, was a lustful man and all that. But it's because they don't understand design and construct of how things work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 Like, it all comes back down to science.
Mm.
You either
Yes.
know the operations of what's happening or you don't.
Yes.
And oftentimes, if you misunderstand, you begin to mistreat. Or people use their misunderstanding as a reason to mistreat others.
Mm. By the
It's like,
way, I
oh, they're
remember
different from me.
yes,
I can slander them now. They believe something different than me. It's like, instead of looking at it that way, let's just say they know something you don't, and you might know something they don't.
very
Which means if
true.
y'all have a regular conversation, you can be whole.
And just maybe by sitting together and fellowshipping together, maybe we can deduce a thing or two, and maybe have the whole thing figured out together. No, there's this doctor in the US. I don't remember his name, and there's a time he did research together with some university students from Oxford, and they wanted to because for him he was trying to understand who a human being is, and if according to him, he wanted to know and understand who a human being is. And he had said that if I find out the truth that God is indeed, you know, in man, then there's a way I will give my life to this God that you guys have been proclaiming about. And if a human being can defy the laws of science that have been erected and publicized, known, then I'll embrace this God. So what did he do? He looked for a donor and then erected a DNA strand from the donor, and then subjected the donor to positive and negative stimulations. What happened? Anytime the donor was subjected to positive stimulation, the DNA strands could relax. Anytime, you know, this donor was subjected to negative stimulation, the DNA strands could tighten up. And then this explains now the emanation of disorders such as heart problem and the likes. You know, and then the next research, that one first of all made him understand that the human embodiment was just focusing on the human emotions. They defy the conventional laws of physics. The next thing he did, he wanted to see. I don't know if you like, for example, if you've ever had someone that is closer to you, and maybe something happens to them, maybe a good thing or a bad thing. Even if you're not born again, you can tell. You can just feel something is wrong. You know, so they wanted to see how far they can separate the donor from the DNA strand. They left it at the 50th mile, and they realized they cannot separate the DNA from the donor. No lag time, no transmission time. Everything was simultaneous.
Yeah.
That shocked them.
Yeah.
Now, what shocked them even the most is they looked for a different donor. They took a strand. Okay, they collected from the ground, I mean, from outside, the light photons, and inserted the light photons, the bundles of the electromagnetic energy, put the light photons inside a vacuum, and the particles were randomly selected. Guess what happened when they inserted the human genome? When they inserted the human genome, the construct that was formed is similar to the strand of the DNA. And they came to this fascinating conclusion that if human emotions can affect, you know, the light photons, and our thoughts can affect our emotions, that means the reality of the world we live in is dependent by the thoughts we process and who we are as individuals. Because how can the nature is altered by the insertion of this genome inside this vacuum flask? The geometry pattern that was formed similar to the DNA strand. And that was the entry point.
Yeah. And that really gets into like the science of telepathy, communication from a distance.
Yes.
Cardionosis, which is heart to
Cardinosis.
heart
Yeah. Yeah.
knowledge, is the basis of telepathy, in which I
Yes.
actually believe was our original language. I believe that writing and verbal language came as a result of our lack of intimacy and oneness with each other. That
Very
we
true.
stopped communicating telepathically as we stopped loving each other collectively. Once I view you as something separate from myself,
Yes.
I can no longer speak to you heart to heart because I no longer see you as the same as I see myself. Love
Very
your
true.
neighbor as yourself is a science for telepathy.
Very true.
Love God with all your heart is science for telepathy.
Yes.
If you love both, that means that nothing happens in the world that you don't know about because you're on a heart level connected to everyone's heart. You're able
Yes.
to know what's going on miles away, countries away, or even up close, because some people have far vision and no up close vision. You're able to know everything going on just because your heart is connecting and feeding back and hearing the information in everyone else's heart.
You know, I know of a group here in Kenya of Indians. They're not even Christians. They are Indians, and I sat down with them some time back, and I was shocked. These guys decided not to be communicating for some time with the phones and the gadgets. They sit in the room like this. They could do that for hours and hours. They just sit in the room and they communicate with each other without opening their words. I mean, their tongues, their mouth to speak. And you go to a place now, even if the other brother, yeah, or the other brothers are in a foreign land, they can speak at night. Not just at night. It's like one of the brothers can be in the meeting, communicating and signing a deal with a company. And if there is something that he needs to communicate, he doesn't have to call him, doesn't have to text him. He'll just communicate to him. You know. Also, I remember I was listening to Ian Clinton and Dr. O some time back, and they were saying they were teaching in a certain conference. I think it was in the US or I don't know which country, but if I'm not wrong, in the US. And they were teaching on the concept of immortality. And that day, there were three men who were strange, who appeared in that conference. And after the conference, they just felt this drawing to go just and speak to them. And they approached these men. And they were like, I hope you've enjoyed the service today. How was the service for you? So, thank you. That is the life we live in. And what do you mean? And then I don't know if it was Ian or who, could pick that, oh God, you guys have been here for a while. Yes. How many years? 300, 400 years. So there are people that have cracked these things. And my desire is that we may be able to embrace these truths and may walk in them because it's so powerful. Imagine you are somewhere with your spouse, or maybe you're in a foreign country, you've attended something. Maybe let's, for example, I'm saying, God forbid, maybe something happens, someone is kidnapped, something is happening somewhere where you cannot access them. You can just appear to them. And there are people that are doing that. So these
Yeah.
possibilities are there and they are for good.
Yeah. Like you mentioned St. Patrick earlier. There was a
Yeah.
story of his that I've always found funny where he met some saints living out in the wilderness, and it was a young couple.
Yes.
And eventually the topic came up. It was a young couple, and then it was like some older people, like
Yes.
elderly people with them. They were
Yes.
talking to the young people, and they was like, "Oh, we're actually 300-400 years old." It's like, wow, y'all look so young. Like they look like they were in their 20s or 30s, right?
Mm.
He says, "Well, if y'all are in y'all 20s and 30s, how old are they?" And they said, "Oh, them? That's our grandkids." That they had already been walking in uh that rejuvenation. Their kids got the longevity, or their grandkids got the longevity, didn't get the rejuvenation manifestation.
This
That
is
they
this is
look
my
younger
persuasion.
than their grandkids.
This is my persuasion, Nelson. My persuasion is as we continue walking with God, as we continue meditating, as we continue practicing these principles, then the life within is supposed to multiply every single day. That means
Mhm.
that every cell of our being is supposed to be engulfed, it's supposed to be absorbed, it's supposed to absorb life. So this thing called aging is not supposed to be that way. you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, it's not supposed to be that way, but because maybe of lack of understanding and mastery of how to make even the cells to self-repair, and absorb that life that you're living. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah.
That is my
So,
belief.
so we're getting ready to wrap up. I just want to open the floor for you to begin to share just any words of wisdom you might have for the audience.
The only thing that God wants you to do as a person is to say, "Here I am, I'm willing." God has resources. There are chambers in the heavens that most people have not stepped into, and maybe you are the one to ascend there and unlock. When you read the Bible, you'll see a man like John, the Revelator, Ezekiel, all these people, Isaiah 6, they had encounters with God. They were caught up before the throne. They had encounters with God. They saw in a measure. When Isaiah saw the Lord, he did not see the elders. When Ezekiel saw the throne, he did not see the elders. He saw the beings. But when John, the Revelator, came into the picture, he gave a more detailed picture. He gave a picture of the sea of glass, the 24 elders with their crowns, the beings that were captured before. Is there probability that there are beings that have not yet been seen? They are cancers. The kingdom is a kingdom. That means the same way in a government there is an ambassador or there is a minister in a certain jurisdiction, is the same way that God has entities that he has given jurisdiction, elders, people that has given, let me say entities that have given jurisdiction over domains, that you may step in that. Talk about agriculture. God can teach you agriculture according to the blueprints of heaven. Talk about technology. Myself, I'm in tech. And there are different ideas right now. As I'm speaking, there's a country in Africa where the minister has called me to go and converse with him about how we're going to sell this system. It's a system that is nowhere in the world. It's a system that I was given in the heavens. So whatever it is, there is a solution. The only thing that you need to do is just be willing to learn, be willing to grow. There is a lot to learn, there is a lot to unlearn, and there is a lot to embrace. Just because we can say we love God doesn't necessarily mean we love him. Be open to him, be open to his spirit, and to be surprised at how he'll reveal himself to you. Don't limit yourself. Be in that place where I'm willing to learn and learn. I'm willing to become that which you've called me to become. Amen.
Awesome. Well, brother, it's been great having you on. Where are some places that people can connect with you and partner with what you're doing?
They can connect with me on Facebook at Apostle James Stone, on Twitter at James Stone, also on Instagram at Apostle James Stone. Yes.
Awesome. Well, again, it's been great having you on. This
Thank you,
concludes
Nelson.
this episode of The Inner.
Yes, sir.
Until next time, y'all be blessed.